Got a few things to say about how pro-agriculture I am. See where my notes went. My microphone buried my notes. I wanted to show you what it's like to be a true friend of agriculture in the United States Senate, and that is actually, unlike the Tammy Duckworth, of being for TPA and TPP. In my case, I have voted many times against the WOTUS decision and have backed the ethanol industry big time. Went for the farm bill, and especially crop insurance. In my case, I have voted against the new Vermont GMO regulations, and unlike Tammy Duckworth, who is for the cool regulations. And I was very happy to get Section 179 expensing through to make sure that is permanently there for America's farmers. And I have voted for free trade with Colombia and South Korea. Not like Tammy, I understand from my note taker, Tammy Duckworth, I understand, told you that all 200,000 Syrian refugees will be, quote, thoroughly vetted. She lied to you right here in this farm here. When she lied to you, she knew that the director of the FBI, James Comey, had already testified multiple times before Congress that there is no vetting that happens. On the obvious point that we were on it, the FBI is unable to build a terrorist database on the Syrians right in the middle of a Syrian civil war. The Director of National Intelligence oftentimes has said there is no screening that we can do because we do not have information on these people. I want to make sure that as your senator, I make sure that all those people that go to work in the Willis Tower each morning can come home at night, unlike the people at the World Trade Center that never came home. The government has to protect the national security of the United States, especially when you're disagreeing with the president of your own party, which Tammy cannot do that. She has to be genetically with the president on every issue, even if it hurts the country. And I will not do that. In my case, I'm a easy friend of agriculture. You've given me the Friend of Agriculture award a couple of times. I very much appreciate that. I have been with you. I am for you. I am not with the big Chicago unions like my opponent is. I will back free trade to make sure we open up markets. Remember, 95% of all humans are not American citizens. And we need to feed those folks and make sure we have access to those markets. Not just now, but I would like to take you through. You guys want to hear my evil plan for Illinois? My evil plan for Illinois is to make sure we dredge the lower Mississippi so we can get the Supermax ships that can now use the new Panama Canal. Remember the difference between Panamax ships and the Supermax ships. The Supermax ships, the Panamax could load 12,000 truck equivalents, the containers per. In the case of the new Supermax ships, they can go up to 34,000, double the quantity. And my goal is to dredge the lower Mississippi so that we can land bulk commodities, corn and soybeans in the Pacific Rim, lower than our competitors for a generation. And if we do that, we will spread wealth across Illinois. When I talk to the soybean community, they said we expect, should we be able to fully use the Mississippi River with the full utilization of the new Panama Canal, we would expect a 35-cent increase in soybean prices. I am totally dedicated to that goal. We will spread wealth from the Mississippi River across Illinois to make sure that happens. And to accomplish that vision, you're going to have to send me back to the Senate where I will beg, borrow, and steal for Illinois farmers. Yeah, thank you. Any questions? I wanted somebody to act like they're from Highland Park, Illinois here. Yeah. Questions? Thoughts?
I'm coming, Senator Kirk. A little slow.
Yeah,
a little slow today.
round of applause for the Kelly family that hosted us here.
Well, you spoke about the Mississippi River and your plans there, but there's a lot of conversation and with trade, but to have a good transportation system and infrastructure is really important to agriculture. And the challenges that we faced with WARDA, we got those passed, but there's been a lack of appropriations, and the Corps of Engineers is talking about getting dollars and appropriating some different dollars. What do you have in mind to help us get that appropriation through, that we can get the locks and dams fixed as we go forward?
The best thing is to not rely on the Army Corps of Engineers. I've been putting in the Durbin-Kirk Amendment that allows private interests to come in and lengthen and widen the locks and dams. The river-using community is the only community that constantly petitioned to pay for more capacity. In this case, using the Kirk-Durbin Amendment, I went to the head of Archer Daniels Midland. I said, Mr. Chairman, I want to take your credit card for a spin here. And I would imagine we'll have ADM signs on all the locks and dams up and down the Mississippi. If you've ever been to Decatur, one of the cool jewels of the Illinois economy is the ADM logistics management floor there in Decatur. It looks like the New York Stock Exchange. I think they're the competent manager to take over the locks and dams. And remember, once we offer up these locks and dams and the revenue streams that can come from that, we can go a lot faster than slow Army Corps of Engineers. And I am just waiting to go to New York to raise the money so we expand those locks and dams to make sure that we have the full capacity to turn Mississippi into an exports drag strip for Illinois agriculture.
Like that. Well, that's really important, and you know, if we get the infrastructure put in place, then let's talk about trade a minute and how important these trade agreements are. And you mentioned Panama, Colombia, and South Korea, how that has really been good, not only for Illinois agriculture, but all of commerce here in the United States. What's your position on TPP, and how can we move that forward? What could we do differently, or what would you do differently to make this more amenable because you listen to all the rhetoric by the candidates, presidential candidates that is, they're not very kind to the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
I disagree with you on a bunch of things. That Trump is against the TPP, I think we should do it because 2/3 of world GDP is in the Pacific Rim. We need to make sure that Illinois agriculture has access to those markets. And I will not be with the big unions like Tammy Duckworth. She will shut down those markets in an instant because the big unions order her not to be with them.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah, thank you.
The U.S. EPA has really thrown business and agriculture a number of curveballs, you might say, with whether it's the Clean Water Act, and they should use science to develop rules for products that protect crops from weeds and insects. They employ a number of scientists. Do you feel science should be a part of the basis to approve ag products to control these pests, or should politics play a greater role?
Not just science, but common sense. Remember when the EPA started to tell us there was a dust crisis in America. Whenever a farmer harvested land, they created dust. I see no dust crisis in America. I don't think we should allow EPA bureaucrats to shut down agriculture that way. In the case of the WOTUS decision, I don't know if Tammy admitted to you that she is a strong supporter of WOTUS. She is. She's already voted that way. If you are plowing a furrow on your land and it happens to fill with water, I do not think we should extend EPA jurisdiction to that little furrow with water at $36,000 fine per day.
It's really tough on any individual that mistakenly does something wrong, and with all the permits that we'd have to have in place or whatever we want to do as a land practice would really be a challenge, not only for agriculture but commerce and the business community as we try to develop better ways. Hopefully we get this mic right. Mine's not working very well either. How is that, David? Can you hear it? It's okay. I got to get it. I guess I got to put this thing in my mouth. Oh, a few more questions. I need another hand. How will you lead reining in EPA?
I think we don't need foot upon foot of federal regulations. We need something like the REINS Act to make sure that anything that costs more than $100 million to implement has to pass the Congress. All these we cannot regulate our way into wealth. And I would say that we need lawsuit reform in the United States and make sure that happens. You cannot sue us to wealth. All these regulations are not productive. And I would lead the charge on the REINS Act. I already have.
Thank you, Senator. What is your position on immigration? If immigration or labor is really important to agriculture, whether you're a specialty grower or a livestock producer, and we can't find labor to get the job done, to harvest these specialty crops or to feed the livestock that we have on our farms, how would you help agriculture and the United States with immigration reform, and what do you have in mind there?
I have already voted for immigration reform in the Senate. I will tell you why. I wrote the Kirk Amendment based on my experience as a reservist in Afghanistan. When I was in Afghanistan, notice we had lots of groups of Hispanic soldiers. The Kirk Amendment says if you are granted a combat infantry badge by the U.S. Army, a combat infantry badge is the badge that is given to you if you've been officially under fire. In that sense, the Kirk Amendment says the moment you get a CIB, you instantly become a U.S. citizen. Under the principle that if you fight alongside of us, you are one of us. Wanted to make sure that that was in there. Just feel it from my experience that if we had a largely Hispanic company of soldiers, and I told them, you know, there's some Taliban on the other side of that hill. God help the Taliban on the other side of that hill. But we will kick some serious Taliban butt. Yeah. Guess he put the thing wrong there. We'll fix that.
You know, I've mentioned many times over the years to add another nickel or dime to the bushel of corn or soybeans that we all raise, or a nickel or a dime to a pound of beef or a pound of pork. You know, we need four things in place. We need trade, we need exports, we need livestock here in Illinois. But also along with that comes the biofuel standard and biofuels, you know, ethanol and renewable fuel standard. Can you tell us your position on biofuels?
Pro-biofuels have voted that way constantly to make sure we defend the renewable fuel standard. And the reason why, for our biofuels out there, and the good thing is the ones that are around that corner are not in the Persian Gulf. You don't need a Navy to protect them. For the Persian Gulf petrochemicals that we depend on, you need a substantial military investment there. We should make more American energy right here off of agriculture. It makes sense to me. For the big ethanol industry that's in this state, I cannot promote employment around the state too much, which we would lose with the RFS. I think we need that.
Thank you. If we have any other questions, please get them to Adam or Ryan or Russell standing around the side. We'd be more than glad to bring them forward to the senator. Any burning questions? Talking about security here in the United States, Senator, and and other issues, what have you done, or what do you look forward to do differently in improving the security here in the United States?
I think we need to pause bringing in 200,000 Syrian refugees. Remember from the notes that my people took on her speech, she tried to tell you that the Syrians who were coming into the United States are somehow different That she's asking you to suspend your common sense. They are all from Syria, the civil war area that gone through this Syrian jihad experience. I would ask you not to suspend your common sense. We cannot make the same mistake that Europe did of letting all these people in. That, you know, once you bring over 1,000 Syrian refugees into this country, you now outnumber the number of FBI agents right here in Illinois. I want to make sure with the FBI, we already had access to substantial resources to watch these threats and stop these threats before they start. We've seen too many people killed in France and Germany, and I want to make sure that we secure this country. And we cannot go the way of the Germans, who committed a kind of national suicide that by letting in so many folks that hold radically different views and will someday pop off in jihad against the United States. I think that it's better to pause the program and leave those people out of the United States. Let's pick safety first.
Thank you, Senator. If we could go back to another trade question here, and you're well aware of Illinois Farm Bureau and corn and soybeans have all had delegations that have gone to Cuba to look at what are the opportunities for Illinois agriculture, Illinois commerce. What is your position on Cuba trade relations?
I've been against it. I think looking at the Castro brothers and what they've done to that poor country. There was a time when Cuba had the second highest income in the Western Hemisphere, rivaling only Argentina. It now rivals Haiti for being one of the poorest on earth. And making sure that the Castro brothers see the way all other communist dictators have done, I think is better for the world. In the case of the government of Cuba, they have been a long time provider of espionage against these states. We had this one woman named Linda Montes, who was a spy in the Defense Intelligence Agency, and she underscored the problem that we had, where she would provide intelligence against the United States, and the Cubans would sell it to the Russians and to the Iranians, making several $100 million per year off that. I think without the Castro brothers, we would be much better off, and the Cubans would be much better off.
Thank you, Senator. Going.
Says son of a bitch.
No. I didn't see that one coming. I have yet to hear our two presidential candidates talk about their ag policies. That scares me. What would you do to impress on our new president about agriculture and how important it is to the U.S. economy?
Agriculture is a winner. You want to hear some good things about our state? Oftentimes I pull out my cell phone to make this point. A lot of times we have friends and relatives that laugh at us because we are from Illinois. I want to make sure that you know that Illinois citizens are victors and not victims. In the case of this iPhone, this is the most iconic product of the 21st century. The top end of it, I hope you don't open yours, is a telephone transmitter. And that was invented by Martin Cooper from Winnetka, Illinois, when he worked for Motorola. Remember, Quincy, Illinois invented the car radio, along with a bunch of people at Motorola. I've been saying oftentimes, this iPhone with its browser in it, the browser was invented by Mark Andreessen from Champaign, Illinois. The company Netscape had made the whole .com boom takeover. This iPhone, 76 million made and sold by Apple, which is now worth more than the whole country of Sweden. It has roots in Illinois as deep as Abraham Lincoln. And when somebody from Silicon Valley tells you that we are better than you, you can wave your phone in there and tell them, put this where the sun don't shine because we invented it. Yeah. I want you to remember, lots of times when I give this talk, I say that if it wasn't for the people of Illinois, a lot of your friends would be missing teeth and have houses that were dirty. And the reason why I say that is Illinois invented modern dentistry and the vacuum cleaner. A lot of times people from Peoria say, hey, Kirk, tell them that we invented the electric blanket, which they did also. Make sure when I'm in the United States Senate, after my stroke, let me take a personal moment here. When I was recovering from my stroke, I would look out the hospital window. I would see blue, black, day, night, and I thought long and hard about my role as being United States Senator for Illinois. I thought I had to change the discussion to be pro-Illinois, to make sure that we advance the spirit and the history of this state. I studied a lot of our economic history to prove to you we are victors, not victims. And we have done so much.
Thank you, Senator. One more question here, Senator. This writer writes, thank you very much for your support in ag positions, especially on waters of the U.S. Please give us your goals on tax reform, especially the death tax.
I would like to get rid, you notice that Duckworth is for the death tax. She actually is along with the left wing of the Democratic Party. She actually wants it. I'm against the death tax, have a perfect voting record against it. I don't think if you work your whole life with your income being taxed your whole life, it should be taxed again to have the farm owner die or whatever and get this huge death tax that threatens the very existence of the family farm that might have been in the family for several generations. It's something that we need to get rid of. And we shouldn't sign on with far-left Democratic politicians that like the death tax like Tammy Duckworth.
Well, thank you very much, Senator. And on behalf of the ag community and everyone here, I want to thank you very much for coming, being part of our senatorial candidate forum here today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Senator Kirk a round of applause for his service to